boys. Today we're going to be talking about the lizard people. I just thought I would change from the men's mental health just for this podcast and talk about a conspiracy theory that interests me. Okay, so where we're going to start. The lizard people. Do they exist and what do they look like? This is what they have been described to look like. Yellow to green glowing eyes, scaly dark green skin, 6 fingers and toes to each hand and foot, and around 7 foot tall. Will kill and eat you if they get around you. Okay, now do they exist? I cannot answer this question because I don't want to sway you either way. But here's some information I have learned. In downtown Nashville on Christmas Day in 2020, there was a city evacuation for the downtown area, around and surrounding areas. Tony, aka Anthony Quinn Warner, died in an RV bomb he had created. He believed that the reptilian people had tapped into phone lines and electricity in houses, and the reptilian people would sneak around and put switches in your head to control you. It was later revealed that Tony was hanging out with Pamela Perry on many occasions, and Pamela didn't see him anything more than a friend. She stated that she met him, she knew something was off, quotation marks. But he seemed nice, so the two quickly became friends. Tony mentioned something cooking in the RV for a special surprise, and he would go down in history. Pamela tried to touch the door handle to the RV, and Tony got real upset at Pamela and grabbing her hand forcefully and causing a bruise by grabbing it. Pamela began to question Tony's motives, and she was afraid he was making a genocidal bomb, and many people would end up hurt or possibly dead. Scott Poole said, "The lizard people have roots as far as back as the serpent in Eden, the snake of Satan. There were tales dating back as far as the 1980s in Bishopville, with witnesses stating they have seen or was watched by the lizard people. One witness, Chris Davis, was changing a tire on the side of the road, and he was ran after he jumped into his car to hide. The lizard person jumped on top of the car and clawed it. He was attacked. He made a call to the police about his attacker. Chris returned to his brother's house, Willie Davis, and was terrified to get out of the car. He was so scared he could barely speak. This prompted a park search of the wooded area surrounding the area where Chris had been. They found an unearthly footprints, quotations, and a metal burn barrel sitting in the woods. After using the cadaver dogs, the officers returned back to the station without any answers. Retired Sheriff Bill Stokes was on the search team. He remembers the prints very vividly. He said in all his years he's never seen anything similar to those. Brace Belton, a conspiracy theorist who runs a podcast, goes to say it was a hoax that started to bring people into the tourist trap, and everything was word of mouth until 1990s when the internet started to get bigger with most phone calls and went to a more widespread conspiracy on social media platforms, and even to make groups for others to, quotation marks, talk. With all this information readily at Tony's fingertips, the possibilities were endless. To him, it was a way to document his lady reptilian he was fond of and tried to come visit every Christmas Day. David Icke, professional football players and co-host of a television show, repeated, "Wake up, America," and was documented saying the government was controlling by these shape-shifter lizard people, which came out later. It was actually a storyline of a movie at the time, which did feature lizard-like creatures. People were blaming these creatures for the inhumane things others were doing to one another and to animals. At one time, the lizard people were, quote-unquote, scapegoats, and when people realized this, the police phones started flooding in. One report says there are 833 lizard people living in colonies underground. Carrie Cassidy, reptilian conspiracy theorist, stated, "To keep the reptilian colonies from attacking us, we, quote-unquote, not talk about the reptilian people, so don't ask, don't tell, okay?" And even made references to Hitler speaking reptilian languages to motivate the Nazis. Haved, a former FBI agent, remembers seeing an article about Obama being a shapeshifter lizard person. In 2018, Bucky Wolf kills his brother because the reptilian voices told him to. Okay, back to August 2020. Pamela calls her lawyer after hearing about Tony's quote-unquote bomb, which at this time she never physically sees it, but the lawyer calls the cops for Pamela. But not to research Tony. This call was claiming that Pamela herself was suicidal. 11 cops in patrol vehicles show up, guns drawn, to try to get Pamela, quote-unquote, the help she needs. Sometime between August and December, Pamela went to the hospital, and even in all the researches I have found and articles I have read, and none of them stated why she went to the hospital. The day she got out, Tony contacted her and told her he was glad she made it home safely, and she noticed there was little gifts in her home. She knew who they were from. Her friend, quote-unquote, Tony, was using the key fob to let himself in her house. Pamela sold her house and moved into an RV to try to avoid Tony. On Christmas Day in 2020, the cops were informed that there were a bomb in multiple buildings and an RV sitting in the middle of downtown. An automated voice came across the PA system saying, "Get out, evacuate." Shortly after, bombs went off, taking down 40 buildings on 2nd Avenue. With Pamela having a lack of trust for the police, she decided to call the tip hotline to help the cops maybe identify the bomber. But she knew who it was. It was her friend, quote-unquote, Tony Warner. In 2019, they pulled the records from the call from Pamela Perry and determined she might be working with, quote-unquote, Tony, or she was a gilded ex-girlfriend trying to gather attention from the media. Pamela told the police that Tony was big into conspiracy theories, and she had went on a walk in the woods searching for these lizard people. She also went on to say she believed the conspiracy died with Tony, but if you ask the residents of Bishopville, the lizard people are real. And that is the end of today's episode. If you like this conspiracy, or if you can think of any other conspiracies that you would like me to touch down on, please let me know. Leave a comment. Please give me a like, share, and a follow, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye. Love you guys. Mwah.